Immigration is such a complex topic. Um, I could spend hours and hours and hours talking about this stuff, preferably with someone, and still not be able to get to the bottom of it, right? And present all sides of the story, all the causes of this effect, why it's being done, why certain groups support it, others oppose it. Um, I mean, you could have this conversation literally for a week till you drop dead. But not in the public sphere, right? It's really simple. Either you're racist, you're a bigot, or you're a traitor, and it's like, oh, okay, cool. There's no middle ground, right? What what have I talked about? A lot of other people have too about these either or, right? Situations. My default position when it comes to that, the way in which I analyze it, right? Think about it. The default position, until proven otherwise, right, is what? It's a false dialectic, right? Both sides are full of shit. Not to say that you don't get nuggets of truth from both sides, right? Because, well, let's just keep it real. A lot of people don't like immigrants from coming into their country because they're racist, right? Or nationalist or ethnicist or whatever the hell, however the hell you want to call it, right? They just don't like people that are too different from them, right? That's definitely part of it, right? But that doesn't mean that everyone who's against immigration is necessarily a racist, right? So, I mean, talk about oversimplifying things, right? While at the same time throwing nuggets of truth in there, right? On the other hand, the people that are, pro immigration, let's say, they're not these do gooders, kind hearted, you know, people who just want to help others, right? In most cases, they're not. Because when the shit hits the fan, right? They live in their, some of them maybe, in their gated little community, and they wouldn't accept these people into their homes, you know what I mean? They don't necessarily mingle with those people either, right? So, and the things that most people do today, the trends that they follow, right? Whichever side of the dialectic they fall on, it rarely has anything to do with morality. Okay, they are just following the crowd. There's been studies done on this shit. It's, in my opinion, and it just makes sense. It's logical. It's just been proven that most people just follow the crowd, whichever crowd it is, right? You only have two choices. You follow it because, well, it feels good. At the end of the day, that's what this comes down to, right? You just don't want to stick out too much, at least within your little people group. Yeah. Because, as I stated in another video, this whole idea that people who are, let's say, there's all these white people talking about how slavery is evil and bad, and how if back in the day they were alive back in those days, they would have never owned slaves, and they would have been, abolitionists, and they would be fighting for black people or whatever. Well, first of all, black people aren't the only slaves in human history. They're probably the minority, really. Anyway, it doesn't matter, right? If you look at the globe, right, we're all good global citizens, aren't we? At least we're supposed to be. And the reason why a lot of people weren't against slavery is because that was the mood of the day. It was okay. It was accepted, and it just was what it was. And the people that stuck out and fought against it, right? It doesn't matter what they really thought deep down inside, or if they even took the time, the people that were, let's say apathetic or ambivalent or just minding their own business. But maybe they never even really took the time to think about whether it's moral or not. It was the flavor of the day and they didn't want to stick out. They just went along with it, right? We just had a perfect example of this with the lockdowns, right? The majority of the people were pro-slavery. So don't give me this bullshit that you would have been an abolitionist when you had a chance to be that and you fucking failed. All right? Can we just dead all this fucking nonsense? Okay. So you got a lot of these channels. Let's just stick to the conservative side, right? In YouTube or just out there that are presenting immigration as bad, and they just want to, they're just nationalists in some way, shape, or form, right? They push nationalism and they're anti-immigration. Okay, fair enough. So and let's just take Great Britain, because that's what we're looking at here, or the United Kingdom, right? Those same people are very much pro, many of them, most of them, these pundits anyway, right? Pro royal family. The royal family means a lot to them. The British Empire Kingdom is, something great, grand. It's in the name, right? It's exceptional, and we need to preserve that. But what is the, and this applies to, the United States as an extension of the Commonwealth, and whatever have you, right? Let's just say the West. What is so fucking great about Great Britain, right? Or the Commonwealth? Well, they're great because they went into all these countries and fucking genocided the natives, right? That's a fucking fact, right? That ain't no hate. That ain't no being a leftist. That ain't none of that fucking bullshit some of you might be thinking right now, right? It has nothing to do with that. It's the motherfucking truth, right? So why the fuck would you support that shit, right? You know what I mean? That's the legacy, isn't it? And those are the nuggets of truth on the left, right? Now, two wrongs obviously don't make a fucking right. They just don't, right? Whatever these imperial powers did to all these poor bastards in all these other countries, right? Sending all those people pissed off because of what the empire has done to them is still to this day doing to them, right? Sending all those pissed off, disenfranchised, homeless, uh, traumatized by war, radiated by nuke, depleted uranium, whatever the fuck, like all those people who just ain't right, right? Because of what the empire did to them, sending them back sending them to, let's say, England, right? UK, for those poor bastards to deal with right now, right? These traumatized motherfuckers that hate them. A lot of them, not all, but a lot of them, right? Sending them there, right? That doesn't atone for the fucking sins of the British Empire, right? Because the Queen, the King, whoever the fuck, right? The aristocracy, right? The ruling class, they'll always have the military to protect them, or big tall walls or whatever. They'll be fine, right? They'll assimilate enough brown people into their ranks to, they'll appear friendly, right? The powers that be have nothing to worry about. It's the rank and file that are getting fucked, right? And then that's very like this forced sort of immigration, right? Like two wrongs don't make a right, right? That's not atoning for your sins. That's not fixing the problem, right? That's just spreading the problem all over the world, right? That is, Malcolm X was right. That is, even though he wasn't talking about that specifically, right? That is chickens coming home to roost. That's what it is, right? So for you to be this conservative that's pro the crown and yada yada yada, and then bitch and moan about all this immigration, well, that's the crown's doing this shit, right? They're in it. They're involved in doing this. Why they do it, what their motivation is. Look, man, we could sit here and guess all day and probably provide some good guesses. That doesn't matter, right? What matters is they're doing something that's wrong. That's what matters, at least insofar as us here talking about this, or is it just me? Really? Right? But these motherfuckers will sit here and just bitch and moan about immigration, but we'll never talk about, well, why is it there in the first place? And there's like no recognition of how the evils of these imperialist nations kept all these other nations down. Now, don't get me wrong, like, yeah, Europe, at least in more recent history, has advanced more than most other parts of the world, if not all, right? Like, yeah, that's the Western civilization is king, yeah. And it probably would have always been so, right? At least right now. But the gap would have never been that big had it not been for the Western civilization destroying all other civilizations, right? Not letting them, like, come on, man. This whole idea that, like, some, white nationalist douchebag it's writing a paper about Africa and providing IQ test results and all this other fucking data that's no doubt skewed. It's collected by these biased racist motherfuckers. Like, I'm not saying there's no, again, nuggets of truth and everything, right? I'm not saying there's no truth to that. I do believe that, you know, the Aborigines in Australia and the Africans, if they were just left to their own devices, right, without the West meddling in there, they still would not have developed more or into a more advanced, if you will, culture than the West, right? But to just ignore, and they had their own conflict and they had their own problems. No, yeah, 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 yeah. And maybe on average they're not as intelligent for whatever reason. Sure, fine, whatever, man. If you think the IQ test is some kind of a hard, rock solid measurement of anything that's all that significant, you're not that fucking smart. I'm not saying, again, there's no truth to it, but who defines IQ, right? Who defined IQ? Well, the people who designed the test. So do you think they're gonna look better on that test than the people who didn't, right? Anyway, but look, I admit that there's some truth to this, probably, right? Because, well, there has to be truth in a lot of these ideologies for people to believe in them, right? If it's just straight up bullshit, no one's gonna buy it, right? So there has to be some truth in there. But to just completely ignore the West interference in all these countries and bring in more war than those people already had, and financing warlords and going in there with their NGOs and destroying these countries from within, or these kingdoms, and assassin. I mean, look at what happened to all these African politicians as of late who were against the Western medicine, right? Well, it's like 7 of them just fucking died, right? Most of them still arguably in their prime or not ready to croak. You know what I mean? Like, come on, are we really gonna play this game? I don't, no, 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 homie, don't play that. I don't play that shit, right? I mean, just okay. There are African warlords, right? There's all kinds of crime going on, all kinds of genocides, whatever, conflict, people killing people in Africa, right? No doubt about it. A lot of vicious motherfuckers running around with guns doing what it is that they do. Where the fuck did they get these guns from? Can we just dead the nonsense? Okay then. Moving right along. Right? So these motherfuckers over here will like lick the R.I.P. Deceased Queen's butthole, right? And be so proud of being British, whatever the fuck that means, right? Um, and support the very system, right? That is also that created all this immigration, right? That is supporting all this immigration. That is bringing all these immigrants in, right? So, um, how high is their IQ really? You know what I mean? Well, let's just keep it real. How high is their IQ? Or are they just fucking shills, right? But the people that follow this shit believe in it and they're like, yeah, illegal immigration bad. Those people are bad. We need to get rid of them. Without, while at the same time, crying because the queen died because she was so great and all this other shit. Like, those motherfuckers can't be that smart, right? I do believe a lot of these people, I don't know about these people on your screen, right? Like individually and personally, I don't know, but I do believe a lot of them are just straight up shills, right? I also think a lot of them are just too fucking dumb to realize that they're shills, right? How? How do you rectify these two ideas, right? The crown, which is responsible for this immigration that you are against, from like it's the root motherfucking cause, and it's what allows this to happen, right? How are you at the same time pro the empire and then bitching and moaning about these immigrants coming in? Like, it just doesn't make any fucking sense, right? Right? So, you know, when I look at these channels that get a decent amount of views, they're big enough, their sub numbers don't just like evaporate, disappear. No one in the comment section is complaining about being unsubscribed from them, you know what I mean? They experience pretty steady growth and they get pretty big, right? And I look through their videos and I watch some of them, right? And I don't see any mention of Klaus Schwab, the World Economic Forum, right? The Internet of Things, UN Smart Cities, right? There's, how's this for a dialectic, right? There's, I can only think of two options, right? Either they're a whole bunch of motherfucking Dunning-Krugers, right? Or they're just shills. You know what I mean? Thanks for watching.